Daddy.
Okay.
Daddy,
See, I told you my kids would be here.
Well, I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight and joining us. It's this is our 20th episode of Meet Your Makers, and I want to thank our special guest is Matt Villard, winemaker, owner of MCV Wines in Tin City. And we're going to get to learn a little something about his journey. And I just wanted to say that I have not been to MCV before, so I'm hoping to enjoy some of their wines soon. But I do appreciate Matt coming on, and I've heard great things about their wines. But before we talk about me, let's talk about you, Matt.
Sure.
Give us just tell us what you did before you were in wine, before you got into wine.
Nothing. I've only ever been in the wine industry.
Okay, I read in your bio you were like pre-med in college, right? And then shifted gears. Is that true?
Yeah, when I started at UC Davis, I was pre-med, and then I switched out to lots of different things, actually: comparative literature, philosophy, winemaking, a whole bunch of different things. I was one of those kids that they like made leave, and so I had lots of interests, and so I actually took a year off of school, and I was selling vineyard sprayers in Napa and Sonoma, and that's actually how I got my first job, like 5 years later. I was selling vineyard sprayers, and Aaron Pott, who's a fairly famous winemaker, was working for St. Clement at the time, and that was part of the Behringer group. And so I would go and have lunch with him and hang out, and he's like, hey, whenever you want, hit me up and I'll give you a my client was asking me a question via paper instead of opening the door. So anyways, I met Aaron, and then 5 years later, I went back. I sent him an email when he was at Quintessa at that point, and like, hey, you remember me? Can I have a job? And he's like, sure, I remember you. We can have a job. And so he hired me at Quintessa in 2007. I was working for Andy Walker, a vineyard professor at Davis at the time. And when I graduated in 2007, I went on to work at Quintessa. And so that's kind of how the whole thing started. And so, yeah, ever since I graduated college, all I've ever done is winemaking.
So what influenced you? There must have been some catalyst that got you into the wine industry. What was that, right? You remember?
So my parents are wine collectors. And so I grew up drinking nice wine. We grew up in, more European mindset. And so I was able to drink wine and whatever for, much younger than is legally, allowed. But when I was growing up too, you could go wine taste. I remember I would go wine taste with my dad when I was like 16, 17. We'd go out and go wine tasting. My grandfather was a farm rat of Delano in the Central Valley, and he swore he was going to sell his farm when he retired and buy a house in Cayucas, because that's where he grew up going. Because I'm long generation of Delano on my dad's side, and so they would go to Cayucas for vacations when they were going on vacation. And so that's what he did. He bought a house in Cayucas, and so I grew up going over to Cayucas, and my dad and I would go wine tasting in Paso or Santa Barbara County, whatever. And I was 16, 17, and nobody really carded you, and so we'd go wine tasting, and it was a lot of fun. And that's really what kind of got me going on wine. And I actually didn't, I grew up going to vineyards because my parents would know all these vineyard owners. I distinctly remember Ken, I'm blanking on his last name, but he was the original founder and owner of Santa Cruz Mountain Vineyards, the one with the Bobcat on the label. And we'd go there every year to Santa Cruz and spend, multiple hours hanging out with him. And my parents would be drinking wine in the barn. I'd be running around the vineyard, catching snakes and whatever and hanging out. So I grew up around wine, and it never really occurred to me that you could actually make wine. And I took intro to winemaking my freshman year at Davis, and all of a sudden it all kind of just clicked that, wait, so anybody can really just learn to make wine. It's not like separate from, it's something that you can do. And it just kind of clicked for me. And as I like to say, it was kind of a downward spiral from there. And I went from pre-med to winemaking, and there you have it. And so that's kind of how I got into wine.
So your parents were collectors.
Hmm. I
You
was
have a
diving through my
wine.
dad's cellar 2 years ago, and I think we found like a 91 Opus One. So like 2021, I was just diving through his wine cellar, and there was like a 91 Opus One. I'm like, it's Christmas, we should probably open this. And so
Was there a wine in the collect? Was there one wine that all of a sudden just opened your eyes and say, "Yeah, this is fantastic"? Was there one that was kind of game changing for you?
Not in terms of wine in general, but in terms of being Petite Syrah centric and like loving Petite Syrah, there was definitely one that really stood out to me, and that was EOS. A long, long time ago, back in
Oh
like
my God,
2002,
yeah.
2003, before they were purchased by that was the original RCRO family before they were purchased by the Foleys. They used to do wines called the Coupe Grande, and so they did a Chardonnay and they did a Petite Syrah. And I still remember it was like 2002, 2003. I might not even been 21 at the time of having this and buying this, but it was like a $50 or $60 Petite Syrah in like 2002, 2003. And it was just like mind altering that Petite Syrah, that something could be that phenomenally good, that amazing. And so that's what really got me into Petite Sirah, was that wine. But in terms of wine, I mean, like I said, I just kind of grew up with it. It was just part of my life, part of everything. And so, but in terms of focusing on Petite Sirah, that's what really focused me to Petite Sirah. I actually had a goal when I was at Davis working for Andy Walker. Andrew Walker, it's Andrew Walker. He's a very famous grape breeder. He's now retired emeritus, but very, very famous grape breeder. He's responsible for a lot of our rootstock clones, a lot of our stuff. He actually had a goal, and I remember working this project when I worked for him. Before he retired, he wanted to grow what he called a banana grape, and so as a muscat derivative, but it would have an elongated berry, kind of like a banana. It would be yellow, and it'd have banana ester character. And so he was working. I still remember working on those plants back in the day, but anyway, so I was working for him, and I actually had a kind of an idea that I wanted to move to Oregon because all winemakers love Pinot Noir, Riesling, and sparkling wine. And so I was thinking I would move to Oregon and crossbreed Pinot Noir with Petite Syrah and create kind of a Pinot Noir, like a whole complete mid-palate, fully flavored grape that doesn't need blending, but with like more structure, more oomph, because I am from the Central Valley of California. So I grew up coming to Paso. So I'm more used to like a bigger, denser grape wine that would be able to crossbreed Pinot and Petite Sirah and create something with that density without the need for blending and stuff like that in Oregon was kind of what I was thinking. And I went up to Oregon interviewing in like 2009 when the economy had collapsed, and so nobody's really hiring, and then all these other things happened, and so I eventually started MCV in 2011, but Oregon obviously didn't happen. So yeah.
My wife and I had been to EOS in the early 2000s also, and I remember having some of it. That's prior to me using Cellar Tracker, so I don't have any history on that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Where have you worked in any of the other places prior to starting up your own, other than the Davis project? Have you
So I worked at Quintessa, I worked at Justin, Gainey, Chalone, and BV.
Oh, okay. Great. Did you have any particular mentors in the industry other than Andrew? It sounds like he was the guy, right? The kind of
Well, yeah, I mean, Andy was fantastic, but Aaron Pott was another one. And then actually Kevin Sass, who is now the winemaker at Halter, was influential for me. And then I've had a few winemakers that I don't want to mention over the years that I've learned of things not to do. And so, and then, learn from them in a negative way. But, there's all kinds of different things to learn. I try and learn as often as possible.
So what are some of your favorite wineries or winemakers in Paso Robles? Do you have any particular favorites?
um, I love a lot of wine from Paso. It's really hard to name any one maker or winery necessarily. I mean, at home, Mac is one of my favorites. McPrice Myers. I think Mac
Yeah.
is one of the best winemakers in Paso Robles. He's fantastic. My wife and I were out to dinner with a cork rep. Actually, my cork rep had taken myself and another friend of ours, another winemaker, and his wife out to dinner at In Bloom at the Paso Market Walk last Thursday. And Mac was with his general manager and some other people for a business dinner. And at the end, at like 9 o'clock, when they were shutting down, Mac and his GM and Teresa and I were sitting there chatting for a long time, and we were talking about the upcoming harvest and stuff. But I really actually very much appreciate Mac's Wines. It's the only wine club I am a member of, actually. So I would say Mac
That's
probably.
funny because we were with friends over the weekend and opened a bottle of the his 2019 Paper Street Zin.
Mhm.
Boy, was it good. I mean, really, and unfortunately, and relates to everybody, it was very hot when we went there for the tasting. There was nobody going in the tasting room. It was 2021, mask restrictions and all this kind of monkey business was going on. And we had to sit outside, and they had portable air conditioners next to the table. And it was
Mhm.
just really hard to concentrate on the red wine. Must have been 90 out, like, so anyways, but we made some purchases and I'm glad we did. I don't have a lot of McPrice Myers, but I did enjoy it now that I've had a chance to drink it couple years later. Okay.
Yeah,
So what is the most challenging part of making wine?
selling it.
That's the standard answer from everybody. I bet you only 1 in 20 have uh, said something different or answered differently. Yeah, it is hard, huh?
It is. It's the hardest part of the business. There's
Your
so
wife
many
does all the
wineries out there.
marketing.
And it can be. I mean, there's some places out there that, basically put, you know, some words I won't say into a bottle and then sell it for a lot of money. And you're just, wondering why, but that's a lot of marketing and advertising money. And then you have people that small high-end producers working hard and making some really great product, and they just never emerge. And so part of it is marketing, and it's sad that the quality of the wine doesn't always reflect the sales numbers. It's just one of those things. I have a saying I like to use, actually, that I think you can make the absolute best wine in the world, but if you can't sell it, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, wine, beyond all the romance and everything else, it is a commodity because it's bought and sold and purchased and drank and everything else. I mean, when you whittle it down, it is a commodity. And so if you can't actually sell it for somebody to consume it, other people beyond yourself to consume it, it's not really that relevant. And so the sales part is incredibly important. So.
I think we find that in this group all the time. Those that share what they're drinking, they're proud of it. They think they found a gem, and they share it, and they're proud to share it. They don't see it that often on this page, and then it all of a sudden becomes part of the normal flow, and that's how things grow in this group, especially for those that don't have heavy marketing tools like a Dow or Austin Hope or any of those, right? So,
well, Kathy has some MCV, and I know Scott Starr has some MCV. I saw that name go by, and I don't know why GLS can't deliver your package, Mike, but apparently they can't for any reason. Susan's got some too. I can see that there. Demetrio comes by every once in a while, so he's definitely got some. You got to come by soon. I haven't. You didn't come by since like what, April or May?
It was recent, and that's a tomato that I got. I don't know why it's not showing.
It's Whatever.
filters.
Because you have your filter on.
Could be.
I guess,
Okay.
yeah, I guess, right. Yeah, you're right.
We got to come try. We got Teresa's new pineapple sparkling wine. I inherited some pineapple sparkling wine, and it's legit like method champenoise pineapple sparkling wine from organic pineapple juice. It's not even concentrate. It's, and I was storing this for a friend, a very famous sparkling winemaker was the original winemaker on this project, and his client stored it with me, and then they abandoned it, and we finished it, and it was crazy. But you got to come try it. It will blow your mind how good it actually is. It's like, you think pineapple sparkling wine, you're thinking sweet, gross, cloying.
I'm thinking Hawaii.
Exactly. We're gonna start the project again, because that's exactly what we're gonna do. Is we're gonna sell 1,000 cases in Hawaii, and then take a sales trip every year to Hawaii to sell this stuff for a couple of weeks, and it's gonna be terrible. We're just not gonna do ourselves at all with all the work involved. And so, but yeah, you should come by. It's fantastic. It's a cool project. My wife, who's in the group right now, but it's really her thing, and so it's gonna be fun. So yeah,
I can tell you one thing: when Dimitro tastes something he's impressed with, we have our own team messenger. We share all these things all the time, and we're always, hey, we went there. Have you been there? Have you tried this? And then typically when we're all up there, or we'll try to go to all the places that we haven't caught up on. So. All right, Matt, all right, we asked you what challenging, what is the most exciting part of making wine for you?
the end product, actually, when it comes out at the end. I mean, you can usually tell fairly quickly post-harvest. I could actually tell fairly quickly in harvest by the taste of the fruit once you're processed through what it's going to be like. But that kind of final, you get in the bottle and it's done, because there's all these different steps where you can screw everything up. So when wine is made in the vineyard, I know it's a cliche, but it's actually kind of true, because you can manipulate less expensive grapes and make stuff. I have a $20 bottle that is nationally distributed that it's not exactly vineyard to bottle direct. There's a couple of other things we do to it to just to make sure that it's distributed in 10 different 12 different, whatever, how many different states it's distributed to. And so, but with like my high-end stuff, like Dimitro, I have a 18 black. I bet you have black, because I remember you buying black.
Yeah, I already drunk it, so I
Oh,
only
you already drank black, okay.
Oh yeah, so I only have Tanat. Maybe now it's
you only have.
soon.
Well, I'm sorry you have to suffer through Tanat. So that's Glenrose Tanat, right? And so Glenrose is like a top tier vineyard. A lot of wineries in Paso, like top tier wineries, buy from Glenrose. So that stuff comes in. There's not a lot you're doing to it. You're basically just trying to help it along to make sure that it is the best product it can be. There's not anything going on beyond trying not to screw it up. And so the exciting part is when you get that fruit in, you pick at the right time, because you're out there tasting the vineyard, you're out there tasting the berries, you're out there making sure everything is perfect. You pick it, you process it, you're doing all of this hard work, and then you make it through 18 months. And bottling is a trial of fire. I mean, you have all of these things. You spent all of these months trying to get this wine to the point where you're going to bottle, and then all of a sudden you have all these logistical challenges and issues and problems that always happen during bottling. You get the wine in a bottle, and then a few months later you taste it to see where it's at, and it's just as good as you remember it when the fruit came in. And that's the most special experience, is when it's just, wine is just where it should be, where you thought it was going to be, where it's just extremely beautiful. So that is one of those experiences.
So Matt, now just kind of getting off the little bit, what do you like to do in your off time?
I'm actually in a Dungeons and Dragons group with some other winemakers and vineyard managers and some other friends and stuff. So we do that every second Monday of the month, and then we do some guys' weekends where we just play D&D. My wife laughs at me because we just go to like I said, my grandfather wanted to retire to Cayucos and he bought a house. So we'll actually just, like 7 or 8 or 9 of us, just guys, just go to this house in Cayucos and sit there and we're mostly winemakers and vineyard managers. So we drink very nice stuff, but we just sit there and drink, wine and whiskey and whatever, and play Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, and eat, more beef than I should tell my wife about at my age, and just play Dungeons and Dragons. I actually really enjoy gardening. My grandfather really liked. I was talking to a client about this actually because he likes to do woodworking. My grandfather loved doing carpentry and stuff. That's how he retired, because he was a farmer, and so he grew plants. And I am not a farmer, so I actually really enjoy plants. And so I garden. I do a lot of well, not a lot of bonsai. I'm getting back into bonsai, and so bonsai, gardening, video games, Dungeons and Dragons, reading. I read a lot. I was a comparative literature major and a philosophy minor at Davis, as well as the winemaking. And so I read a lot. I try and stay sane with a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, stuff like that. So.
And then you already kind of mentioned something, but what is your favorite non-wine adult beverage?
Whiskey, Irish whiskey. I'm an Irish guy.
You like Irish, right? Yeah.
One of my best friends is the GM over at Onyx, and he's super interested in bourbon, and so he's been actively trying to get me to buy bourbon. I was actually on a sales trip in Wisconsin because I have a distributor in Wisconsin, and I was selling wine to, it's like one of the top 100 salespeople for Southern Wine and Glacier. It was amazing. Like, they fly him all over the place. And so my buddy was like, hey, see if they have any allocated whiskeys. And I'm like, okay. And so I asked the guy, and he was buying like 8 or 9 cases of wine, like 5 different SKUs, 4 or 5 different SKUs in like 9 cases. And so he was dropping, $3,000 or something. And so I asked him, and then my friend went completely radio silent after he had pulled out all of these. Like, he went back to like his basically like a safe. Like, he has like a giant safe in the back, and he's like opening and pulling. He's like flashing them all in front of me and putting them down, and I'm just like looking like I have no idea what to do because my friend went radio silent. And so I ended up coming home with a very expensive bottle of allocated bourbon. And so I've been slowly drinking that over time, and it's kind of turning me a little bit, but really I just want Irish whiskey. It's, fantastic. So
One of our next, I'm going to skip over the next question because we usually ask the winemaker, was there a story behind the name of your winery? But
mine's pretty straightforward.
I've stretched my brain to believe that that's your initial. So
yeah, well, it's my winery. I can call it what I want.
I'm tired. I'm tired now from the. So, what was your first year of vintage?
2011.
And what did you make? Petite Syrah? Was that your first wine?
I did Petite Syrah, Syrah, and Grenache.
Okay. And you're still making all 3?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, Petite Syrah is my driving force. About 60% of the grapes, 70% of the grapes we bring into MCV or for MCV are Petite Syrah. And I bring a little Syrah, a little Grenache, Tannat, Petit Verdot for blending purposes. But really, my driving force is Petite Syrah.
You don't have a lot of labels, right? You have like what, 5? I think I saw. I got to go back and look. How many?
No, I did what I swore I would never do, and I have like 13 different labels.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
We got my flagship, which is 1105. So MCV in Roman numerals 1105 is my flagship, and then we got black, which is my reserve blend, which is just Petite Syrah, Tannat, and Petit Verdot. So our 3 black grapes, and then we got Syrah, Grenache, Tannat, Petit Verdot, Sauv Blanc, Pink, which Kathy's drinking right now. We got ALV, which is our Sauvignon Blanc. We got Red, which is my nationally distributed one. We got Chef's Choice. We got straight Petite Syrah, which is our kind of what I call introductory Petite Syrah. It's a little bit less expensive than my vineyard designates. It's kind of meant for wine lists, high-end tasting bars, general public. We got Roseman Vineyard Petite Syrah, we got Gemini Vineyard Petite Syrah, we got Chef's Choice, we got 1. So I think I'm at 14.
Wow.
And I swore I would never do that. Swore. I mean, I've been friends with Neil Collins for God, long before I even made wine. Like back when I was a student at Davis, I would go and chat with him and hang out. And that was like 2005. I think I met Neil, 4, somewhere in there. And like he has like 17 different labels. I'm like, I swear I'm never gonna do this. There you go. So
Well, I apologize. Sometimes I look at the website and I go, I see the current releases and I kind of, but there are many more and they're not available right now because you probably sell them out.
Yeah, we're kind of cycling through at the moment. We're our upcoming release is November, and we're kind of cycling through some vintages and stuff like that. And so it's been kind of needs to get updated a little bit more, but yeah, we're selling up some things, updating other things, and so yeah.
So take us through the process of how you decide or select which wines you're going to make.
So I buy the same fruit every year. And so I want consistency in my vineyards. And so from Glenrose, we buy Syrah Grenache Tannat every year. Petit Verdot, I used to buy from a spot on the east side. Now I'm buying from Onyx's Briarwood Estate, which is southwest of Templeton. It might actually be in Templeton. I'm not entirely sure. When I was coaching my kids' baseball teams, I would look down from the field and see the vineyards. And so it's pretty close to Templeton.
It is Templeton.
What's that?
It is Templeton.
It is okay. So Briarwood's
Just off
technically in
the
Templeton.
Vineyard Drive.
Yeah, exactly. You turn down Paseo Excelsior, and there you are. And so the Sauv Blanc comes from Onyx as well. My Petit Syrah, the two primary drivers, the vineyard designates. It's my original vineyard I purchased from. I actually got that vineyard as I was driving down from Napa in 2011. In 2011, I was working for BV, and I had hurt myself. I was crawling under all these tanks and pressure washing these things, and I blew out a knee and I couldn't walk for like a month. And I was the good employee who said I didn't hurt my knee at work, and so I didn't get much out of it. And they replaced me, and I realized they replaced me. And they're like, "Hey, so now you work for this mass-produced Diageo brand, and you get to push a pump around." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that." And so I left, and on the drive back home from Napa, well, back to Cayucas from Napa as I was fleeing, I got a call from this owner of this vineyard because I had been making calls to like Kevin Sass, my old boss at Halter. Well, he's at Halter now, but he was at Justin before, and he was still at Justin, or no, he's at Halter at that point. I called Josh Beckett. I called a whole bunch of friends of mine, and nobody had anything for me. And then I got a call about a vineyard, and so as Petit Syrah, I'm like, this sounds really interesting. And so I talked to him some more, and we agreed upon a price as I was driving home from Napa. And then I made some phone calls to different custom crush facilities and found a spot. And that's how the whole thing started. It was literally driving back from Napa to Paso as I had quit this job because I was unwilling to be demeaned after, putting all the effort and time and being, rejected for being the good employee. So anyway.
Do you have any favorite grapes that you haven't worked with yet or that you're planning on in the future, maybe looking into?
I love Torontes. There's 3 clones of Torontes. So Torontes Riojano is the white grape that you think of in terms of like the white wine. There's 2 other clones. I can't remember the name of them off the top of my head, but they're geared more for like distillate and bulk. And so, but the Riojanas is one of my favorite white grapes, and I have not yet been able to work with it. The only plantings I know of are really in Lodi, and so I just haven't been able to get it done. But my goal is to get Torontes into the program, and so that is a grape that I am driven to find to be able to work with at that's like a high quality planting, because it's not going to be like a cheap everyday white. I want it to be like a quality driven white wine, and I just am working to either get it planted or find it. Don Rose actually at Glenrose is my best source, because that dude will plant. If it's obscure and he wants to do it, he will plant that stuff, and he will do it quality. And so I am trying to find Torontes.
Okay.
And Torontes you're referring to, this would be Ariada?
Riojanas.
Silver Spoon Vineyard in Lodi?
It might be. I'm not sure. I don't know the exact vineyards. I've looked at it, but I don't really want to ship grapes from Lodi to Paso. I'm always questionable about actually getting it here quality wise, especially when you're looking at like 2 or 3 tons. I mean, if you're ordering if you're ordering 15 tons and you're having it, dry ice in the back of a climate controlled shipping truck, that's one thing. But when you're, my size, it's very difficult to make sure you can maintain quality at 2 tons driving for 5 hours in the middle of the heat, because usually it picks in September, and who knows what the temperature is driving through Fresno.
So tell us a little something about what we talked about the other day. That's kind of pretty exciting that I haven't really ever had anybody. I've heard of futures on selling futures on wine that's not made yet. I get all that, but your private label, your
Yeah.
label project. Tell us a little something about that.
So, so I do a private label program for like vineyards and restaurants and stuff like that. And I want to kind of extend it out to the public. And so basically, I would work with somebody, and I can work as closely with them as they want. We can find vineyards, we can do whatever they want, and I can help somebody make the wine that they want to make. And so if you want to make a Paso Cab, we can find a source on the west side, east side, whatever you want. If you want to make chart, it doesn't really matter. We can find what you want and then work as closely together or as hands off as you want to make a wine that you want to make. And so if you want it to be, a stainless steel fermented Chardonnay, and that's what you want, we can get that done. If you want it to be barrel fermented and be super buttery, we can do that. If you want cab, if you want whatever. And so I want to work with private individuals to make a wine that they can have for themselves, to drink at home, to share with their friends, to share with their family, to something that they can say, I helped make this, or I had this made for me. And so it's something where the people can get involved to really make their own product and to really make their own wine.
They're deeply involved in the process then.
They can be as deeply as involved as they want, or as hands off they want. I mean, I have vineyards that will literally just drop off 1 ton of grapes to me and say, hey, make this because we're going to drink it at home, but we're also going to use it to give to people that are interested in buying our fruit. And then they give it out as bulk wine samples to people. And, this is how good our wine can be, our grapes can be. And so kind of the same kind of thing where people can put their own label on it and make what they want, basically. And I'm very patient because I love making wine. I love making wine. And so I love seeing the passion from people as you get farther in the wine industry, and the more you do commercially, everybody has this happen in their own industry where you start losing that perspective of that just like pure joy of doing what you're doing. And so to me, helping somebody make that product that they're so happy to make, it reinvigorates me. I have a client I just picked up last year who's making the most obscure varietals you can imagine. And I tell him, like, I love your project. This is amazing. I could never make these because I can't sell them commercially, but like, I'm so incredibly happy you are, because it's so cool to work with like Tourette Noir. Like, it's an obscure Rhone varietal. Like, I could never in a million years sell this wine, but he's making this stuff. And it's like, how, like, he's a sales rep for a major distributor in Southern California. So he's in line to sell this stuff, but I'm like, I could never do it. And so I get to work, he did Teraldigo and Tourette Noir and like all these random things. And it reminds me of why I'm doing this. And so I really love doing it, because you get that passion and that drive and that love that, when you're doing it commercially, you kind of sometimes lose. And so it's something that makes me very happy. So if somebody wants to come up here and be involved, I want them to be, because it really, it's something that will help, make me happy, basically. And so.
Well, that kind of leads us, you kind of touched on it before, was that during harvest, you were interested in, having people kind of get involved so they could see the whole process. So in that context, what do you think? I mean, from the experience at your winery, and you touched on that, maybe you can expound what kind of experiences do you have to offer, if not just that or something else, when people come to visit, or maybe they can pre-book something that you're willing to do that's a little outside the box?
Well, I mean, in terms of harvest, there's lots of fun things, punch downs. I mean, I can't really let people fill barrels because there's a lot of logistical issues. I mean, I have a guy out here who's staring at me, making faces through the. Wow, I'm gonna tell him their name. Anyway, he's doing weird things to me through my. I have a big view window through my office that I can see the production area, and so you know, even he who's experienced winemaker, like I watched him splash wine all over a wall and overflow a barrel. And these are things that happen regularly, so I can't really have the general public touching other people's wine to do that. But in terms of punch downs and stuff like that, we can taste. You can taste actively fermenting bins. I'm perfectly happy to pull, samples of an actively fermenting bin. You can do punch downs. There's a few other things we can figure out, stuff like that. But really just kind of walk through and kind of see the experience. And kind of see what's going on with that. The rest of the year, it's not harvest. We do offer a winemaker experience, which is where people can, make the appointment, and we'll do, to be honest, whatever I kind of feel like when I show up. I've actually had it where people walk in the door to do this winemaker experience, and I'm like, hey, what kind of wine do you like? Whatever. I'm standing behind the bar, and then they tell me, and I'm just like start grabbing bottles from here and there and the other way. I'm like, let's do this, and I just kind of whatever the mood takes me to is what we're gonna taste in the back, and then we take them back, and we're all set up in the back with some tables, and we sit in the barrel room and do a 5 or 6 or 7 current release tasting, or vintage relate or library tasting, or vertical, whatever I feel like is what we do. And then we go through and we do barrel tastings, and I walk through the whole thing. Like maybe we do an 11-1105, a 15-1105, an 18-1105, and then the 1105 in barrels. And so we just go through the entire experience of why I'm doing this and what I think. And we kind of whatever the mood takes me, because it's it's the winemaker experience. So whatever I'm experiencing, I want you to experience, and it's that kind of a level of fun. And so it's fun. I want to see people doing this stuff. It's really kind of exciting for me, because it really is fun to see people that excited about wine.
I've only had one experience like that, and probably that was at Herman's Story, where he took us in the back, and then
Russell's crazy.
Yeah, no, he's fun.
I love Russell, actually. He's fantastic. I was in 2013. I ended up with a Petite Syrah from Adelaide. I can't remember exactly the vineyard, but anyway, I fermented it and I tasted it. And after it was done fermenting, I tasted it. I'm like, holy, this is like a Russell from wine. And I randomly ran into him like a week later. I'm like, hey Russell, I made a Russell from wine, and we were just like laughing about it, and then we were drinking cheap beer, and it was great. It was the perfect Russell from moment. So.
Well, I'll put a shameless plug in. Russell and Visalia are going to be on in December on Meet Your Makers on the first Thursday. So just so everybody knows, that'll be a lot of fun for the holidays. And by the way, you're blessed right now with 2 winemakers joining in. That's probably a first in the Meet Your Makers. So somebody's in, these guys are interested in your story, Cliff and Corey. So tell us a little something about your wine club.
So wine clubs twice a year, April and November. We're pretty easy, and we'd like to take care of our wine club members, to be honest. I mean, the way I view my wine club is kind of like family. We're a small family place. You'll see my kids right around here. They were on here earlier. You could hear them for a moment before my wife cut them off. But anyway, and so I view winemakers or wine club members as family. The way I look at it is, when you're having good times, you got to take care of your wine club members. When you're having bad times, like say a pandemic, they help take care of you, and it's a mutual support thing, and it's something that you do together and you grow together. And so I've had wine club members since the day I opened, and I still have club members from when my 7-year-old was a little baby, and I have pictures of them holding him as a baby at the tasting room in Morro Bay. And so it's something we work together, but you know, twice a year, nice and easy. We do you know, fairly standard discounting, but we have a lot of events that we like to discount for wine club members, winemaker dinners. We used to actually be very famous for our winemaker dinners. We would do these we do like 5 or 6 a year in Morro Bay, and we'd actually do a boat cruise. And so we'd have people come to the tasting room. We do our first course, make sure everybody showed up, and then we'd actually do like a boat cruise around Morro Bay, and then come back with a course on the boat with me pouring wine on a boat in Morro Bay. And then we come back and finish in the tasting room. And so we've been trying to get that going again in the winery. And as you know, everything levels out and normalizes, it's been happening more and more. We've been doing brunches, and we like to see our club members. We like to take care of them. And so it's a cool club, and it's not an overcommitment. It's fun, and it's actually gets you access to wines that don't really get released to everybody. And so you get access to some of our, you know, a couple of our high-end Petit Syrahs, the Roseman especially. It's gonna be wine club only here pretty quick. There's only a few cases that really go to the public, and then, you know, black is, we only do 60 cases. I mean, we get maybe 15 cases released general public, and so that's going to quickly get sucked up. And so basically, you know, it gives us access to, or gives wine club members access to our reserve wines that just aren't available generally. So,
How many cases total are you producing a year?
we do about 1,500, 1,600, somewhere in there.
Right.
And so a good chunk of that's my nationally distributed wine that is in, you know, 10 states or whatever. And then, but like, you know, Tanat that Dimitri is drinking, I think we made 35 cases of. That's going to go to wine club and be gone. I mean, we might have 5 cases left, 10 at the most, after wine club release. And so it's, you know, kind of gives you access to those fun little wine SKUs that we're just not making a lot of.
So you're saying, okay, so you're distributed. Why don't you tell everybody where you can really can find your wines? We know we can find them there in Tin City at your facility. Are there any restaurants or other locations that they might be able to find them? We have many people from many states. I don't know right now on the air, but you know, the club membership is quite large. It's gone. I just shipped something the other day to somebody in South Dakota or North Dakota.
I don't think we have anything in Dakotas, but we definitely have a good
right.
placement. We have a good placement in Wisconsin, like all over Wisconsin. I actually went there in May, and so I spent a lot of time on Lake.
That's because of Ann.
What's that?
That's because of Ann.
She actually came through the winery. She came and tasted in, you know, a few months ago. It's fantastic. But I spent a lot of time at Lake Geneva. It's apparently where wealthy Chicagoans have lake homes, but all over Wisconsin, we got in Texas, California, Southern California. It's an up and down. I was with the distributor pre-pandemic that had me all over the place, and then the pandemic hit and it kind of died down a little bit. Now it's picking back up. We're in a lot of places. So like we're starting to become picked up more and more in Southern California again. You know, like Wine Exchange, K&L Wines actually has a 2 of our wines, 3 of our wines.
High Times?
No.
Wine Exchange is Santa Ana though, but
yeah, Wine Exchange is Santa Ana, but no, I've never sold the High Times. And so, but to be honest, because of my distribution level, I don't really know every kind of spot we're in. It's hard for me to tell you. We're supposed to be doing a winemaker dinner with Lowry's, the prime rib house. In February, maybe. And then, yeah.
That's a good place.
Yeah, I mean, it's famous. We find a lot of spots like that. There's a random coffee house somewhere in downtown LA that it's a coffee / pharmacy / deli / wine. It was the strangest thing. One of my brokers emailed me about having best price there, and I'm like, why would a pharmacy have buy the glass wine because they wanted by the glass pricing. And then he emailed me the connection. I was like, oh, that's the most random thing I've ever seen in my life. Sure, they can have by the glass pricing because they're selling it by the glass. But it just kind of pops up here and there because, like I said, I'm distributed all of California. We're in Texas, Wisconsin. We were in 5 states back east. We're picking up Florida and Colorado again. Wisconsin. I think I already mentioned Wisconsin. So it's kind of fun. I don't know. But the best place to get the wine is obviously at the winery because then you probably get to meet me or my wife, and you can have a wonderful conversation like this. So
Right. That's the best part about going to Paso.
yes.
So my last question is, do you have a pro tip for wine drinkers, whether it's around aerating, decanting time, or anything that you think is really important to the wine drinking experience?
Yes, there's something that annoys me exceptionally as a winemaker. Do not aerate your old wines. It drives me crazy when people decant their 40-year-old wines. Drives me crazy. If you are going to decant it, which I understand doing because you want to get off the lees, I kind of get it, but at the same time, why would you put it in a decanter? The traditional French and European method for pouring old wine is not to decant it. It is to get a candle and you actually take the bottle and you pour it in front of the candle into a glass and you watch the sediment pour as you're pouring. That way you're not over auctionating an already auctionated wine. Do not decant your old wines. Drives me crazy because you've already spent 40 years aging this wine. Why would you want to add more oxygen? And so that is one of my pet peeves that drives me crazy. I was actually in Visalia visiting my parents. It was during the Tulare County Farm Show. So it's like the biggest agricultural symposium in the world. And so expense accounts just flow. And I was at a really nice steakhouse with my parents randomly. And the owner was like, he knew I was a smoker back then. I actually still smoke during harvest, but it's the only way I get 5 minutes to myself because clients bother me, employees bother me, everybody bothers me. And so if I smoke, everybody usually, most of them leave me alone. Some of them still bother me, but at least I get 5 minutes every hour to just get to myself. Exactly. I just get 5 minutes to myself to be alone and calm down. But anyway, so he knew I was a smoker back in the day, and so he borrowed a lighter, but he had to light a candle because he didn't have it. And so somebody bought this was 2005 maybe. Somebody on their expense account for a dairy company had bought a 1964 Chateau Margaux. And so he did the whole deal. He had the towel. The owner of the restaurant's name is Chris Sloan. And I still remember he had the towel, he had the candle, he had the whole experience. And he sat there and he poured every glass in front of the candle, watching it pour with the sediment behind the candle to make sure that there was no sediment in the glass, but he wasn't pouring into a canter because he didn't want to auctionate that 50-year-old bottle. And so that is one of my pet peeves for people saying that you should decant old wine. You should not decant old wine. You should very carefully pour it into a glass and drink it very quickly. So
everything like that has been very well articulated in the page thread, all opinions of all from every angle. But that is the one that I hung on the most is, why do you take your wine that's already bottle aged well and aerate it for 4 hours? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I get it on a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, or 5-year-old vintage, maybe putting some air on it. But
hey, somebody told me a story about how they run their 2-year-old wine through a decant or through a blender. And I'm like, that sounds awesome. Put my 2-year-old wine through a blender and super air auctionate it. I don't care. That's fine with me. But but the same thing. It's yeah.
Seems like you're bruising the grape. You're bruising it though. Now, I've seen one of those wine enthusiasts. You can find one of those ones that twirls the
Venturis.
wine.
Yeah. Every time I open a Moderon that's too young, I run it through my Venturi, and sometimes twice.
Yeah. Okay, it's that time. Everybody on mute and ask Matt questions. Who has questions? I know we got a couple of winemakers here that have to join in. Hoyt, Susan, anybody got questions for Matt? Steve?
I do have a question. I just didn't want to kind of be the first. So you mentioned the
Drop
wines
off.
that you're making right now, right?
Hmm?
And I don't believe you mentioned Viognier.
Yeah, I stopped making Viognier.
And that's very bad.
I agree, actually. I loved making Viognier. I loved my Viognier. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, but it didn't
And
sell, and so
yeah,
I just stopped
and
making
I
it.
also thought so. Is because like if you remember from some of the previous tasting, is like I really liked your Viognier because it had acidity that many Paso Viogniers would not have.
Yep, and it still had that richness and that barrel aging and that little bit of oak that kind of give it the roundness and the oomph. And so yeah, no, I remember that you love the Viognier,
Yeah.
but it just didn't sell. I mean, we ended up on the point where I had to cancel the contract with Carl Bowker because we get it from Feliza. I was still sitting on like 2017 Viognier, and I was trying to buy 2020 fruit, and so it's not something I wanted to do, but I had to commercially because, as we mentioned earlier in the session, was at the end of the day, winemaking. The hardest part of this is selling it, and if you can't sell it, there's no point. Why keep doing it if you're not able to sell it? If you're having problems. And so that's where we got with Viogniers. People just weren't willing to spend it, and I was spending. This is Willow Creek Viognier, so I was spending a fair bit of money to buy it, and I just couldn't drive the price needed to actually make money on it, and it would fall behind on the sales. I mean, it was fantastic. I would go through, a month of sales and sell almost a pallet, and then I would go 11 months and not sell a bottle. It was this strangest experience, and it just got to the point where it's like, I was so backlogged on inventory, I just couldn't make myself buy more just because it was too much. And so
Yeah,
it's unfortunate because I loved my Viognier. I thought it was fabulous.
I did. And my second part of the question is, you already mentioned Glenrose and Rosevine. What are your favorite vineyards for the stuff that you did?
More and more Gemini Vineyard is the Petit Syrah de Pomar is becoming more and more and more my favorite. Dan just does such an amazing job. Like
Where is that?
it is a passion project. He's down past Almond Drive, and so when you get to South El Pomar and I'm blanking on the name, but where it used to be Pomar Junction is now Fabulist. You make that
Yeah.
right and you curve down south, and he's a little bit down there. You get past like Almond Drive and you keep going, and it's one of those private communities where it's dirt roads. You just see like a whole bunch of mailboxes in a dirt road, and you drive in there, and it's incredibly steep hillside, and it just develops into this ultra concentrated, amazing wine. I'm sure you've had it before. And then, do you remember the one that I poured for you last time you were there? That big
Yep.
giant, big eagle.
Yep.
That was
Yep.
Gemini Vineyard.
Okay.
And so it just creates this ultra concentrated Petit Syrah. When you have ultra concentrated Petit Syrah, it basically feels like you're just chewing on tannin. And so, but every year, I mean, he planted in 2011, and so we're in 2023. So at 12 years, it's really just coming into its stride. Those roots are getting deep. You're getting that depth of complexity, that depth of flavor. And so that vineyard is really just starting to speak for itself. And so that's really the one that stands out for me. Glenrose is always consistent. I mean, they're not high in phenolics and tannin. Like you're never going to have a Glenrose wine. It's going to be just like dark color, chewy, dense, anything, but it's going to have the most incredible aromatics and spiciness you can imagine. And so that's why I run with Glenrose, is because they
Yep.
create these wines of just, yeah, exactly. And so that's not, if that was a Moderon and it was a 2021, you wouldn't be able to even talk right now because your mouth would just be destroyed. But for Glenrose, like it's got that tannin structure you want, but it's also got all the wonderful, varietal characteristics. It's got the raspberry, it's got the herbal toned. It's got the blood orange, and so, but it's not overpowering. And so they're basically solid limestone. So that kind of what leans into that like less tannic, more aromatic concept. Kind of like Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is best on like, limestone. And so kind of a similar concept. And so I love Glenrose, but yeah, but Gemini is really coming into their own right now.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
I got it. You're over by I could look this up, of course, like any dummy, but you're over by Emersey, correct?
Yeah, we're in the same parking lot.
What's that street name over there on 10 in 10?
It's Cow Meadow Place.
Yeah, okay.
And so Mike English built these buildings in 2000. I was the first one to move in. Well, me and the warehouse behind me, which is the Fabulist and Sans Liege and those places, took the warehouse in the back. But I moved in here, and then Emersey and Ladrone and the whole group with Orion were making their wines here, and then they, as they're waiting for their building across the parking lot to finish, and so they moved in, and then we had Ella's across the way, and then we have Crush Vineyard next to me, and so now we're all full with our 4 wineries. We got the storage place in the back for Union Stock, or not Union Stock, excuse me, Fabulist, Sans Liege, things like that, and then we actually have a cool candy maker. If you come visit, you should try and visit him. He does hard candies. It's called Sticky. You can actually watch him like make these hard candies. He does the most incredible thing. So my star logo that you see on my back here,
Yeah.
he actually got that in the center of a candy looking basically perfect, of a hard candy. Like, he is amazing at what he does. And so we have a candy maker in the complex as well. And so it's just the annex is just a really cool spot to visit. You got 4 wineries, you got a candy maker. And we have parking, which is the best part. You don't have to walk for half a mile to get to where you're going. And so it's kind of a fun spot to be.
I try to point out that there are other wineries over on that drive over that are not in that Marquita, zone that everybody tends to gravitate to. But I love Tin City. I mean, there is so much good wine there, really, in a constant.
It's fantastic.
I mean, even downtown can't even hold a torch to it, but it's a great place to go. And when somebody goes, well, I don't want to go there, I'll make too many stops, I go, well, things have changed a little bit. It used to be you dropped in, tasted did a little small tasting, and you moved on. Now more formalized now, which I think is better from an experience standpoint. So maybe you can hit 2 or 3 in an afternoon and have some lunch there too. I like it. I always thought it was an incubator at first. Now there's mainstays like yourself, Nicora, Onyx, Hubba. I mean, you're Aaron. You've been there for a long. Desperado had been there for a long time. So
yeah,
I wouldn't call it an incubator anymore.
Well, I love Nick. He's a fantastic winemaker. He moved in a month or 2 after I did the original, like before his Sin City, and then like I said, I've always been a fan of Onyx. Their GM is one of my best friends, and so we send people back and forth all the time. And actually, Aaron Jackson and I, because we get Petite Syrah lovers, we send people back and forth all the time. And so there's a lot of community in Tin City, and so it's very nice that we can work together and share people. And
is the GM at Onyx Jeff?
Yeah, exactly.
Jeff
actually, he was here earlier. He came by. And we were drinking cava before this whole thing started. So before I started drinking this black, I was drinking a half a bottle of cava with Jeff. So.
But he's a winemaker too, right? He works
absolutely
on projects. Yeah.
He is shockingly the best small lot white winemaker you'll ever meet. He makes white wines that are just absolutely incredible. So.
Yeah, also for other folks is that like in Tin City, I remember like the problem like number of years ago, there was no food, like other than like a food truck at Barrel House.
Right.
Now it's very different. Now there is pizza at Leber's Pizza at Haba. There is Ether pasta bar. So kind of many more food options available.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was fantastic. Like you said, you got pizza at Hubba. The food at Barrel House is definitely delicious.
Yeah. No,
And
that food
so we
truck is
definitely have food
good.
options. It'd be nice to have something closer to us for food. We do food and wine pairings. We are very concierge oriented, and so if you call ahead, my wife Teresa is perfectly happy to make sure you have lunch available. If you're like, hey, can you make sure we have, whether you want to do, a plowman's lunch or sandwiches or whatever you want, we are perfectly happy to set that up for you. And so that is something we're happy to do. We've done it many times for different people. We're actually happy to take groups that are small or big. It doesn't matter to us. And we like walk-ins. We like reservations. It doesn't really matter. We are just eager to see people. And so, come by if you have extra time, make reservations. If you want to bring a group, we've done, we have like 6,500 feet. So we've done wedding receptions. We've done, birthday parties. We've done, the whole spectrum. And so we're happy to do whatever you need, to be honest. And so,
Well, that's the first stop my wife and I make when we come in there, whether we go to Benom or who else the Cordon, we know them. Nicora, we visit Now I Know You. The next time we're up in October, we're going to stop by. So anybody else got any questions?
Just say that if you get the chance, stop in Girl Scout cookie season. They did a fabulous pairing of Girl Scout cookies and wine, and you would not believe how well the two pair.
My wife and our tasting room person, Tracy, who's on with us, did a fantastic job for that pairing. Those with Girl Scout cookies. It was so fun. At first when they said that, I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, Girl Scout. I'm like, what? And then they did it, and it was just, I actually sat down with some Girl Scout, well, not the Girl Scouts, the little girls, but like the whatever. And we did this whole like pairing where they dropped off these cookies, and we did this whole like tasting through with like these wines and these Girl Scout cookies, and we spent, I don't know, an hour just like pairing wines with Girl Scout cookies. And like you said, then they said this whole menu, and it was fantastic, and people loved it. It was so fun. And like I said, we're a small family place, and so I'm not too proud to do Girl Scout cookie pairings or whatever you want. I mean, I just want to make wine, and I want people to enjoy the damn wine. That's all I really want. It's just that's what we do here is we make good wine, and we want people to drink it, and that's it. And so we're not hoity-toity, we're not too unapproachable. We're just small family place, and specialize in interesting grapes.
Would you characterize your wine as approachable after bottling, after release? You think it's
No.
You need to hold it for a while?
I would. I mean, I was trained in Napa, went to UC Davis, so they're definitely very ageable stuff will age. I mean, we still have 15 or 20 cases of our 2011 flagship that are still quite drinkable and delicious, and still have plenty more age time on them. So the wines I make are definitely ageable, but they're
Big
for sure. I mean, they're Petit Syrah. You can't do Petit Syrah without being big, but they're not unapproachable when they're young. They're just, I don't know how to describe it. They're,
I haven't had your Petit, but I'm going to go with Thin Mints and Petit Syrah. Is that is that it? No? Which one was best?
I'm trying to remember what Thin Mints went with.
I thought they went with the chef's choice, but I'm not positive.
It might have been. I'm trying to remember because I literally sat there for like an hour doing these pairings, and I can't remember for the life of me.
They had the lemon cookies went with one of the wines. It was absolutely fantastic.
It was probably the Grenache Gris, because that was when we had carbonic maceration with Grenache Gris. Because I was talking to it one time. It was this whole big deal where we did this whole thing, and I ended up with carbonic maceration Grenache Brie, and I believe that's what paired with those lemon cookies, because you got the big estery roundness from the Grenache Brie, and then it paired with that like acidity of the lemon cookie, and it was really quite interesting. So, but yeah, in terms of the Thin Mint, I can't remember because Thin Mint's my favorite.
Now,
Thin Mint.
I'll say that our last visit to Paso, we kind of set themes, and the last theme was Petite Syrah, and I will say that MCV was our best discovery on the trip. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So, I was saying that I like to use it events and stuff. We're the best winery you've never heard of. So
Great. Can't wait to stop in. Anybody else have any questions? I know we're running over a little bit. We want to be respectful to Matt's time. Anybody else have anything?
I just like to say thank you, and I look forward to visiting. Sounds great.
we look forward to having you.
Hi, Susan.
Hi there.
So, well, thank you, Matt. This has been great. You did a great job, and I thought we learned a lot tonight. And Petite Syrah, that's where we're going. So,
Well, I appreciate that. And Petite Syrah is wonderfully in Paso. I mean, it's just so warm that we can actually get it ripe and full flavored. You know, it's
Right.
great. So.
Well, thank you so much, and we appreciate your time. And hope to see you soon. We'll be up there in October, and I'll stop by.
Perfect.
Anybody else have anything?
Thank you.
Well, thank you, and have a good evening.
Cheers.
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 Cheers.